Today's topic will focus on presentation methods for presentation designs. In addition to looking at the four major presentation methods, I will share some applicable information you can use in your online teaching endeavors. The four methods we are going to focus on in this presentation are discussions, demonstrations, case studies, and role playing. We've intentionally left lecturing out because I think most of us have a good understanding of lecturing. We've discussed that in some of the other presentations, and I want to focus primarily on these four in this presentation to help us think of some creative ways to share some of our material. The first one we will focus on will be discussions. To facilitate discussions in online learning environments, you want to involve the learner as active participants. A great way to do that is to ask open-ended questions. Avoid yes, no, true, false, or fill in the blank type discussion questions, but you really want to ask well-crafted, open-ended type questions. For example, you could ask an open-ended question like, what do you consider to be some of the most important skills and abilities a teacher will need to possess for the 21st century? That way, you give the learner the opportunity to express what they see and what they feel, because this is more of an opinion question and not a right or wrong answer. But you can get some really good discussions going that helps the participants become active. Also, encourage learners to take ownership of finding and mastering knowledge. Put them in charge of doing some presentations and contributing to the community that you are building in your online class. Even using things like a bibliography or a glossary of terms where students receive credit for going out and finding things pertaining to the module or content of the week that you are discussing. As a result, students can use that glossary or that bibliography as a bibliography reference tool to create their presentations or papers that they may be writing, and can provide them with a real good resource. Also, have learners to share the responsibility of learning. For example, in the presentations, you can integrate the presentations that the students created as part of a discussion forum to lead the weekly discussions if you wanted to. It also helps them to understand their place in the course, that you're not there just to give them an A because they registered for the course, but they have responsibilities each week to complete the assignments and to get things done. It's important to make sure that they understand their responsibilities for the course that you are teaching. Let's move on to demonstrations. We will look at four types of demonstrations: real, simulated, symbolic, and negative. Real demonstrations use actual material to demonstrate a process or a procedure. The lecturer actually uses, for example, a software program. Um, the second type of demonstration is simulated. And simulated actually imitates reality by substituting different materials for real materials. This type of demonstration is appropriate to reduce the risk of the demonstration to the learner, as well as to conserve the cost of materials. Reducing the risk and saving on materials from a real to a simulation can still accomplish some of the goals of your teaching and outcomes. The third type of demonstration, symbolic, uses materials different from what they are to represent something else. Participants are able to use symbols to create a decision making situation in a contracted but realistic amount of time to learn a point. And finally, a negative demonstration is used to produce the opposite of the desired result. A negative demonstration allows learners to understand the consequences of doing a process the wrong way or obtaining an undesirable result. The danger in using this type of demonstration is that participants learn the wrong way to do a process or a procedure. So you want to use these types of demonstrations only when there is an opportunity to immediately correct a negative result and the participant can learn from the mistake. An example would be like a driving school or a flight school, environments where you could correct something that goes wrong. You could also do that in the medical field as well. So it's important to put together different scenarios and situations that you can correct the right way and correct it immediately. This area, tips for successful software demonstrations. The three most important things to remember to ensure a successful demonstration of software is to practice, practice, practice. You also want to create a demo script and test it. If you're doing a software demonstration, make sure everything is working correctly for your presentation that you are doing. You could do a tutorial as well. If you are doing a demonstration in a live environment, make sure that your technology is working, that you have good internet service, and that the necessary software is on your computer. Be careful to avoid varying from the script to answer questions. Tell learners what you will show them and then provide a recap. So tell them what you are going to show them, and then tell them what you showed them. It's kind of the same thing in your software demonstrations. Make sure also that everyone can see your images and make sure it's clear and distinct. Also, you want to make sure that you don't go too fast. It's easy to lose your audience if they cannot follow where you are going. So, gauge the pace with your audience by asking questions like, um, are there any questions? Or are you following? Are you with me? Am I going too fast? Do I need to slow down? This helps to gauge the speed of your presentation, and it finally gives your participants an opportunity to practice as well. The next demonstration we're going to look at is the value of case studies. Case studies are great. They bring an element of realism to help learners learn how to apply and use the knowledge and skills you are teaching them through a practical case study, a scenario they can go through. It can provide practice in diagnosis and solving problems for your students. It can also help to apply newly learned knowledge. At the end of a unit or a module that you've taught, you can allow them to take a case study and apply the knowledge that they just learned through that case study and work their way through it. Normally, case studies are written for one of five purposes. And in the next slide, we will look at each of these five purposes along with an explanation. The first type of case study is identification. Identification will help your learners to identify the positive and negative characteristics of a situation, so learners are asked to find points similar to those that may be present in their lives. This really creates a safe environment to identify the characteristic or point from the case study. The second area is problem solving. Problem solving helps your students use a systematic and creative problem solving technique. So the problem solving models are introduced. Then, to solve the entire problem or any part of the problem, success is finding a solution or clearly identifying the problem. So, problem solving is very good to use in some situations pertaining to disciplines in the medical field, transportation, or law enforcement, for example. The third would be practice. This type of case study helps learners think about and use a new idea or try out a skill in a safe setting before using it in the real world. Learners can also use practice to explore and clarify their attitudes about a specific issue to help them formulate their philosophy on an issue in a safe environment where they can make a decision. Once they make their decision, How does that decision impact other areas? So, practice can really help expose some of the ramifications of their decisions and how they've arrived at some of their conclusions. The fourth study would be application. This is used at the end of a training program. It's really used as a summary and review for a set of complex ideas and skills that were presented in the program. So, different elements of the case study can address how the complex ideas were learned and interrelated. It gives the learners a good opportunity to apply what they've learned in your session or your module through case study. The fifth type of case study is serial. This one uses an initial situation and progressively adds new elements for the learner's consideration. So, a serial case can save time over the other four cases since learners already understand the background of the case and can focus on the element, idea, or skill being introduced. From there, it goes through a chain. For example, you may have seen some of these in perhaps diagnosing a problem that you are having with your computer. It will say, does it do this? If yes, go to this area. If no, go down to this area. Then it might ask you a few more questions and ask, did this fix the problem? If yes, okay, then you're done. Or no, then it takes you through another situation to help you figure it out by diagnosing it that way. You can build a case study in much the same way by using the serial type case study. I want to include a few of the benefits and cautions of using case studies. Some of the benefits include they add a note of realism and practicality to your teaching. They also increase learner participation. A lot of learners really enjoy these. Case studies can also increase retention and act as a low risk medium to apply concepts. It allows students to discover new concepts and creates a non threatening environment. And it can also build on the learner's past experiences. Some of the cautions of these case studies include a need to make sure they are realistic and authentic. They must be believable and needs to parallel the learner's situation, something the learner would actually encounter or may have encountered already. Finally, the participants may argue with the details of the case and miss the major learning points of the case if the case isn't realistic, and that defeats the purpose of the case study method. These are just some cautions and benefits to consider when using case studies. The fourth presentation method is role playing. We will look at two purposes of role playing to develop empathy and skill practice. When done in small groups, role playing can really reduce the learner's risk. Appropriately preparing and staging role playing can also reduce risk for participants. A lot of learners have strong concerns and fears about exposing their lack of skill in front of others. So you want to be careful about that when using role playing. You want to make sure that you can provide a successful and positive outcome with the role playing activities that you are giving your students or online learners. Maybe put one person in one scenario and another person in another, and they can have a debate and role play with each other. Then switch the roles with the two participants. Role playing can be effective if used properly. In an online environment, this may be more appropriate for a synchronous session than an asynchronous one, but it can be pulled off with the proper safeguards and guidelines. I want to wrap this discussion up where we've looked at the different presentation methods to use in your online or face to face presentations. They are discussions and case studies, demonstrations, and role playing. All of these can be effective if used properly and in the correct environment and for the point that you want to get across. Remember to make sure that these presentation methods don't become the focus, but rather a vehicle to get across the points of the content and the learning outcomes that you want for your students. A little bit of effort may be required in designing an effective case study, discussion, demonstration, or role playing activity, but it can be very meaningful and enjoyable for your participants. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next presentation.